Can we do a quick audio check? Emojis, thumbs up.
Yep.
Good. Ladies and gents, I'm Saurav Raj, alumni of IIT Delhi. I'm also the program chair for Pivot 2023, which is the Pan IT World of Technology Conference. It is being held on the 8th and 9th of December at Taj Yeshwanthpur in Bangalore. So quick audio check, thumbs up, emojis, confirm we have good audio and we can put some energy into this online roadshow for today. It's a wonderful Saturday evening and to the bottom of my heart, thank you everyone, each one of you for joining us today. I'm super excited to welcome you to the third edition of our online roadshow. We have an exciting lineup of speakers today and we are going to talk about a very special topic, mental health. It does matter and we'll learn more about this in the coming next 1.5 hours. Joining us today is also Mr. Devashish Bhattacharya, Chairman, Pan IT Alumni India, and with him we also have amongst us Mr. Pradeep Bhargava, General Secretary, Pan IT Alumni India. So allow me to start the session today. Ladies and gents, can we have a round of applause and emojis as I invite on stage Mr. Pradeep Bhargava to talk about our flagship conference, Pivot, Pan IT, World of Technology.
Yeah, thank you, Saurav, and welcome all to Pivot 23. I have a few slides and I will take you through what we have in store for you in Pan IT World of Technology before we kick off our session on mental health. So on behalf of Pan IT, welcome you to this Pan IT World of Technology. A couple of lines on Pan IT itself. Pan IT in the last years has been looking at building a direction, and this time we looked at direction around innovation. And what we believe is the IITs would be go-to place for innovation by 2030. Also, we seek to establish a platform that will be aggregating innovation and research. Beside that, match the needs to availability so that the outcomes are much higher. Be a contributor policy making for the government. And last not the least, to set up the innovation hubs across the country. All this will be only possible as we grow with collaboration. And our whole idea is to our alumni across the IITs, but also then be strategic support for the institute. And in doing so, we'll be collaborating with a number of organizations that are in parallel, also established by the alumni. And some are working like Parfi and Wheels with the rural segment, IT startups for the IT, for the startups, and the alum associations which are working along with all the alumni across the world. We also have international networks across the countries and some city-specific centers. And whole idea is to grow along with the collaboration. With this, we come to this event that is coming up on 8th and 9th, which is a hybrid event, Pan IIT World of Technology, also known as Pivot. And in Pivot, the way we have gone about this time is to create the structure which covers different segments of people. We have students participating in hackathon, and this time more than 5,000 students have already applied for hackathons across the various segments, as you could see: EV, mobility, healthcare, fintech, AI, blockchain. And it should be an interesting hackathon as it culminates during the event day. We also have Startup Conclave with keynotes and panels, live pitches to investors. And this time we are also introducing speed dating, where each startup would be able to meet 8 to 10 investors in the time. And then we have the conference session, which covers various sections. And I would go section by section in the next slides. And this time we also introduced Chintan, where we have been able to get the participation from the directors, from the presidents of Alumni Association, and the heads of the incubation center across the IITs. The confirmation has come from more than 15 directors across the IITs, and they will be there during this event day. We also have the presidents across various IITs who will be joining us, and you will have a chance to interact with these people, as they would also be deliberating in the way we collaborate better across IITs and also with Pan IIT. If you look at the specific tracks, and we started with India and innovation, as the innovation is coming up much larger way in India. We're looking at the cutting edge innovations, the frugal innovations which are happening in the country, and some of these innovations which can be scaled across the world. And what it takes to make this innovation more meaningful and successful, we will have building ecosystem for innovation. In the digital economy track, we are coming with identity, the fintech, and other topics, including ONDC, to see what all can be scaled again from a global perspective. Then we take a turn and diving into the core research, because the research is important, but it's important from converting this research into meaningful market-driven agendas. And whole idea is how we convert more of it, which touches the market. As we see that there is an unprecedented opportunity for boosting manufacturing, and we'll be touching in different segments of manufacturing. And this includes where, including Government of India, has been putting a lot of energy to make it happen. Within consumer segment, we have both healthcare and appliances, and a little deep dive into semiconductor industry. And one of the most hot topic these days, AI, and that would be touched from the innovation perspective, how it could be leveraged from business growth. We have speakers coming not only from Far East, but also from Far West or US, and then from various parts of the world, and being part of the sessions here. Something which Pan IIT believes in, and all of us as alum are contributing, is to create and enable social impact. And we'll be touching the urban segment, the rural, water, which is likely to be one of the most critical needs for all humankind, and navigating for climate resilience innovations. We have hackathon ongoing. As I mentioned, 5,000 people are already participating, and we intend to see them there on the event day. Startup energy, as we know, a lot of enthusiasm within the country. There has been some dampener with the slowing down of the investments, but I believe still the number of startups is growing and number of ideas is emerging more. And we look at whether timing matters and how the timing is going to make them successful. We are on a third roadshow today, 18th November, Mental Health Matters. We have done 2 earlier, and we have 1 more coming before the event, Earth Outbound, or Make Space the Playground. A little light on the office bearers. We have Devashish here with us today, and we have Paresh and Gitanjali. The summit organizing team, led by individuals who are leading each of their tracks and making sure that this event becomes a success, and your support with them. We also have advisors, and many of them who will be with us, which include Chris Gopalakrishnan, Arjun Malhotra, LC Singh, Pankaj Chandra, and also up to Chetan Bhagat, and we'll be seeing them at our event. So you have the opportunity to interact with the top global speakers across businesses, entrepreneurship, research and innovation, and finance and investment. It allows you to have sponsorship opportunities, participate, and make the best of the time together with us on 8th and 9th of December. But that's not all, and there will be a night to remember with a gala dinner, live music, where all of us would be able to celebrate innovation. And that brings us, and we thank our sponsors who are already there, and many of them who are joining us to make this event a success. And with this, thank you once again joining today. I hand it back to Saurav and Devashish to set up the direction for the next proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pradeep. That was wonderful and great to see that we are bringing up a lot of value for our community and for the industry in general. With that, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Devashish Bhattacharya, who is also our chairman of the Pan IT Alumni India team. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Shall I start?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, welcome, and thank you very much, all of you, to having for having taken time off from a Saturday evening to join us. It gives me a great pleasure to see all of you here. Right? Pradeep has taken us through what is going to happen at the event and given a background on why we are doing the road shows. I would like to touch upon a slightly different aspect just to clarify and contextualize the whole thing. Why we are doing this summit, why we are doing these road shows, right? Fundamentally, I mean, if you look at things the way they happen, right? We need to have an objective, we need to have people who believe in the objective, we need to have resources to make that happen, we need to have time and various things. So actually happening of an event is a very, very planned activity. It requires confluence of multiple things. So what we are talking about is confluence. Why Pan IIT is creating that confluence is because Pan IIT thinks the more the number of such interactions, such confluences, the more are the chances of conversations, the more are the chances of identification of points of collaboration, and more are the possibilities of things happening. So what we do in these events are to bring all everybody together, identify some points of conversation which become as conversation starters, and then allow everybody who participates to converse amongst themselves with objective, without objective, on the sidelines, in the main sessions, so that we are able to find a context, right? What we can take away from the session. That is the intention, and that is one way that Pan IIT gives back to the society. So here we are bringing academicians in the form of directors of the IITs and the institute faculty from other institutes that we have invited. We are getting the students, we are getting the alumni, we are getting the industry, the startups, and the investors, right? Including also government representatives from the political side as well as from the administrative side, so that each one has something to talk about with the other stakeholder and they are able to find common grounds, right? And we are hoping that each one of us takes away something which is worthwhile to him, her, or it. That is why we are enthused at organizing this, and we are looking forward to certain things that will be beneficial to us all. Welcome to Pivot 2023. Mental health, as like all other aspects of our lives today, is impacted by the technology that is sweeping across all spheres of our lives. So mental health is also mental health and health in general are also impacted. So in this session today, I look forward to hearing the panelists touch upon the subject, which will be treated in a much more deeper manner in the main session. So all of you who are here, I invite you to also register, if not already done, and join us at Bangalore on 8th and 9th. With that, I hand over back to Saurabh. Welcome to all the panelists, and I look forward to a scintillating 90 minutes with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Devashish. Thank you for your encouragement and your kind words all along for, and the support that you have been giving us in setting up and preparations for the event as well. Ladies and gents, can we please have a big round of applause for Mr. Devashish? And we welcome the session now for the panelists. So give me a few minutes as I introduce you to our esteemed panelists today. Joining us is Dr. Faisal S. Sheikh. He's a consultant, psychiatrist, founder and CEO of MyBabel Limited. Dr. Faisal is a practicing consultant and a general adult psychiatrist in the UK National Health Service. He's currently based in the port city of Hull, which is about 60 miles east of Leeds in England. After completing his medical training at Dow Medical College in Karachi, Dr. Faisal came to UK to pursue postgraduate psychiatric training, culminating in acquiring memberships and later fellowship at the Royal College of Psychiatrists, CCT in General and Rehabilitation Psychiatry, and additionally 2 Masters of Science degrees in Population Health and Medical Leadership from the University of York and Warwick, respectively. His professional special interest is in the neurodivergent spectrum conditions of ADHD and autism. Over his many years of clinical practice, Dr. Faisal has been involved in medical education for students in the medicine, psychiatric trainees, and GP trainees. Please, with a round of emojis and claps, allow me to welcome Dr. Faisal. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Neeraj. Neeraj is a mental health and well-being champion. He's worked as in a leadership position as an and also as an emotional wellness coach to corporate professionals for more than a decade. He is an IT Delhi alumni, a serial entrepreneur, currently building Peak Mind, India's largest platform for students' mental health. As a leadership and emotional wellness coach, he has had the opportunity to work closely with large number of professionals in their career progression, and he has seen closely the struggles that they are exposed to, which opens up several emotional vulnerabilities in a challenging environment that exists today. He's seen the struggle of startup leaders in managing emotional challenges of self and also of their teams. He's seen majority of them struggling emotionally in their careers and also personal relationships. Both of these go hand in hand. This is what convinced him about the critical importance of mental well-being as a primary and a determinant skill to survive and achieve goals in this VUCA world. The emotions affect each and every decision you make, and mental well being is key to managing these emotions in a very strategic and an effective way. As a parent of 2 growing teenagers at home, he felt the need around teenagers' well being firsthand, and that is what convinces him and motivates him to drive to his work on this very, very critical problem. Please allow me to join, please allow me to welcome Mr. Neeraj onto the stage. Thank you, Neeraj, for being with us today and spending this valuable time with our community. With us, we also have our very own uh, Diksha. Diksha Avasthi hails from IT Kanpur. She comes with a 15 years of versatile experience in R&D, in strategic planning, and market research. She is well known for driving growth and profitability with her expertise in delivering technology solutions. Additionally, she is also part of the advisory board of organizations working primarily in edtech, health tech, and media tech located in India, UK, US, and Africa. With her experience, she brings in a global perspective for conceptualizing, developing, and implementing solutions which enables businesses to do better and addressing their day-to-day needs. Deepa is also a member of the board at Alumni Association of IIT Kanpur and a mentor at First Incubation Center at IIT Kanpur itself. She is the director of social entrepreneurship and enterprises, a platform which promotes social innovation in India through 500 plus enterprises working on various sustainability development goals, SDGs. She is honored as a Global Mental Health Advisor, GMHA US, and a Global Impact Ambassador, GIN US as well. She has been a seeker since she was 14 years old and has received initiation from various spiritual leaders. She's also an Akashic Records reader and a chakra healer. Now, something which you may not know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, she was able to direct her energies towards providing mental health and support to people. This was needed across the length and breadth of the country, and not only in India, across the world. She was able to utilize her scientific knowledge and wisdom from her own spiritual awakening, which she founded, used from Diksha Life, a platform where she's exploring the limitless power of mind and body. Her quest involves decoding consciousness and cosmic energies. Her strength lies in bridging the wisdom of spiritual practices with scientific reasoning for modern intellectual society. She has a unique capability of drawing inferences from both the material and the spiritual world, which is also reflected in her works. Finally, to conclude and to speak a few final words about her, she's a recipient of various awards including the Humanitarian Award 2021 by the United Nations, Mental Health Change UK, and Global Mental Health Association USA. Social Excellence Healthcare category. Honorable Mayor Mrs. Pramila Pandey, Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, April 2099. And finally, Her Rising Award 2019 by Herkey, formerly Jobs for Her. Please allow me to welcome Diksha also onto the stage. And with that, I would like to hand over this panel and the topic discussion to Diksha. Please take it forward.
Thank you so much, Saurav, and Pradeep and Debashish sir for warm introduction and welcome. As we have started this conversation on mental health, I wanted to bring this forward that today is International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day. It is a day internationally celebrated to acknowledge the severity of suicide and its impact and to provide the support for those who are left behind. So that's the theme. That is where we are doing it on November 18th. That's what the idea was. So we have to understand that survivors not only go through the grief of loss, but also through the overwhelming feelings of confusion, anger, guilt, shame. A lot goes into them as well. We never think about their mental health as well. So that is where this day has come up, and that is where we all come together to support and encourage and understand the severity of the problem. So I will not go too much into stats. We all know the severity, and so I thought I'll just give you two pointers that will make you understand why this is very important now. So according to WHO, suicide is one of the most challenging societal issue of our times, claiming more lives than war, murder, and natural disasters combined. So the numbers are really staggering. I mean, and according to UN Children's Fund 2021, 1 in 7 young adult in India is feeling depressed or have little interest in doing things. Our younger generation is really going through a lot of mental pressure. We as community, parents and institute have to participate in easing the constant pressure that we're living in a survival mode. When I say survival mode, it means that we are constantly in a fight or flight situation. Either we are bypassing, we are not addressing the problem, we are distracting ourselves through mobile, reels, all that, alcohol, partying, whatever it is, we are actually distracting ourselves. That's a flight method, or a fight method where we become very aggressive, where we're very bitter to people around us. Sometimes we are abusive, sometimes we are respiteful, lot of such emotions. So it's a survival mode, and our human body evolutionarily cannot live in a survival mode. It has to be in a settled state, right? So that is where the problem is. That is where a lot of us are constantly in that stress. We do not sleep well, we do not eat well, and that even adds up to the pressure that we have. So we have to collectively look into the changing landscape of our society and come up with a solution that is long lasting and sustainable. So thank you everyone for joining me today, as all of us today for this important conversation where we aim to reach out for an outcome-based approach. So we are not discussing here the problem. We have understood the problem. We know and acknowledge it. But we want to deliberate the ways through which we can have an integrative approach. Rather than working in silos, there are so many organizations working, but can we bring different learnings together and build something so that it is applied in a vast spectrum? In this context, as we know that we have Dr. Faisal with us, who is working in loneliness, which is becoming a silent pandemic. And Neeraj is passionately working for supporting students, primarily the young ones who are getting into competitive exams or going into colleges. These young adults definitely need a lot of support. So we have diverse domains and diverse approaches to address the same problem. That is where I am very excited to be hosting this session and moderating it for the benefit of all. I would request all participants to please keep sending questions or anything that you would like to interact. It will be really helpful. Let's not make it a very boring dialogue. Let's make it more interactive, more meaningful conversation should come out of this session. So to start with, I would like to ask Dr. Faisal, your expertise in loneliness domain. But I want to understand what is loneliness, because many a times what happens is many times we feel lonely, but we are surrounded by people around us. We are in the crowd, and especially in Indian society, we have a lot of family members. We live in a community-based setup. But still, I have so many people who come to me and say that they have nobody to share their problems to. they feel lonely. So when do we know that a person is lonely versus the person is keeping themselves in a shell and not sharing things because of fear of judgment or fear of calling out in a certain way, so they don't share that, whether it is workspace or at home or with friends. Earlier we used to have at least friends, at least there was one person we used to share everything. Today I think in the changed society we don't have that one person. I mean, younger generation don't have, I think we still have one two people around us, but younger generation doesn't have. So help me understand what is exactly loneliness and how my babel is supporting this particular cause. How are you solving this problem through my babel?
Thank you for that, Diksha, and it's my immense pleasure and honor to be amongst you as a panelist to share my story and to share my experience and expertise as much as I can. Excuse me. So, if you look at loneliness as a concept, I did not understand much about loneliness until a family tragedy happened in my life involving my father going missing from our lives. This happened about 13 years ago. Now, this is ironic based on the fact that I'm a practicing consultant psychiatrist. I have been doing this type of work for the last 22 years. And it is only after my father's sudden disappearance from our lives, from my life, from my family's life, and many years of reflection as to what could have led to his disappearance. And if I may add, he left with a suicide note. And you talked about suicide and how suicide is becoming a pandemic. So this has been a very traumatic, painful time for our family, that we were left with no answers as to what could have happened to him, especially as he left the suicidal note. And reflections on his life, because he was a professional, he was a medical doctor, ophthalmologist, he worked in many countries, did not suggest any abnormalities in terms of depression or anxiety or any other problems. But the common thread that kept coming up again and again, he had been retired for about 10 years, that during his retirement years he became increasingly lonely. And exactly as you said, Diksha, it is not that he did not have physical connections around him. He had my mom, he had my other brothers and sisters, his brothers, neighbors, and so on. But he lacked that ability to express his true self. And this is, I believe, is the heart of the issue when it comes to defining loneliness. Loneliness is the discrepancy between one's preferred connection, social connection, and the actual social connection one has, whereby they're not able to express their true self. They are afraid of judgment, they are trying to fit in, they're trying to mask their true emotions for fear of exclusion. It is at that time loneliness becomes a phenomenon that we have to look at. Um, just before I hand back to you, Diksha, just to say that from then on, my interest began to deepen in this concept of loneliness, and I began to read more and more and make those connections that loneliness actually is a common denominating factor in many of our patients' stories that we see for mental health problems. It is still yet to be identified through research whether loneliness is a risk factor or is a consequence of mental health problems. I'm sure it's both. It's the risk factor that leads to mental health problems, but also mental health problems lead people to becoming isolated from the rest of society, and that adds to the loneliness dilemma as well. There are a couple of types of loneliness that we need to be aware of: acute loneliness and chronic loneliness. And it's worth noting that acute loneliness is that stage of loneliness that you and I and every one of us can feel in a ubiquitous way on days when we are unable to express our true self. But left unchecked and left unattended, or persistent acute loneliness can lead to a state of chronic loneliness. And that, I believe, is what my father suffered from, because he had acute loneliness that persisted over a number of years that he was not able to express or talk about, or was not picked up. Eventually, it culminated in him developing severe depression and other things that followed from that.
Okay, so what are the signs? I mean, early signs we can look for when somebody is in the acute, because we definitely want to have a preventive measures in the conversation itself, that we should not allow people to go in the dark zone. From bringing them from there is a very, very tough and tiring task for everybody. So how can we identify early on itself that somebody, that's where I'm very intrigued to know and understand this, because we all go through this. There is something called solitude, and then there's something called loneliness, and both have different energies and aspects. So if you can tell me how within ourselves and within our children, or maybe our parents or our own family members, how can we identify, or maybe as a colleague, I can identify that a person is getting lonely in his
Yeah.
thought process, maybe.
Of course, of course. So I think we're talking about prevention here, and I would regard prevention into three levels: primary prevention, secondary prevention, and public health measures. So primary prevention aims at ensuring that no one becomes lonely in the first place, that we reduce even the chances of becoming acutely lonely. And for that, the one research evidence piece that keeps coming up is making sure that we are enabling as friendlier and as welcoming an environment that we have around ourselves, be that at the workplace, be that at home, be that in our neighborhood. Because once we are able to establish a friendly or better, a non hostile environment, we are able to provide that atmosphere where people are able to trust each other and trust themselves to trust each other, and open up. And that reduces the chances of one becoming lonely in the first place. When you have the first marker of a population or people can being at risk of loneliness is having hostile environments or environments that are not friendly enough. So a workplace environment that is not friendly gives you an indication that people who work in that environment are at risk of becoming lonely. They may not show, they may not express themselves as being lonely, but they are at risk of becoming lonely.
Yeah.
Then comes the level of secondary prevention. So people who are at risk of loneliness, people who are at risk either because they have developed a mental health problem, mild depression, anxiety, or people who are at risk because of their age group, the elderly people, haven't got a life partner, people who are isolated, don't have many friends, or people who are having problems with belonging because they're in a marginalized community, LGBTQ, or in the UK, for example, we have the BAME group, Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups. So those marginalized groups are at risk, at higher risk of loneliness compared to the rest of us. And again, the at-risk secondary intervention measures are around how do we provide inclusive communities for them that are around connection planning, that are around peer companionship. And there's also more recent research supporting volunteering as a way of reducing loneliness in those at-risk groups. The
I
third
agree.
level, yeah, the third level, of course, is the public health measures. How do we ensure that at a public health level we are tackling loneliness? And I take it back to your earlier point, Diksha, which is very, very important. And more research is confirming this finding for us that loneliness is at the heart of suicide as well.
Yes.
And ironically, again, in my mental health field as a psychiatrist, I don't think we are trained much about loneliness. And you would be surprised to find out that none of our textbooks talk about loneliness. I think loneliness is seen as too common to talk about, yet it is the elephant in the room, or it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room that need to be spoken about and identified. And in the stories of many suicide survivors, you will hear, I was on my own. I didn't have anyone else to talk to. Yet, how many people that we see in those elements of crisis ask about loneliness? We don't. I don't. I mean, I think that's a public health measure that has to be addressed. That has to be addressing this at a population level.
Yeah, I definitely vouch for that volunteering part which you have said. It does wonders. I do advise a lot of people to go for doing any kind of volunteering. Go to old age home, go to orphanage, go to anywhere. It brings perspective to your life. So definitely I will overemphasize this part, that volunteering helps a lot. Whatever cause you are attached to, go and teach some children, go and help somebody somewhere. It helps definitely. And how is My Babble helping in loneliness, when you said that you have not got it from your curriculum? And I'm not surprised, because the time curriculum must have been established, that time loneliness was not that a big problem. Now we have become very conservative in sharing, because we have a fear of judgment. I feel earlier we were not scared too much. As a community, we were not too scared. We were sharing very openly. It's okay. Somebody is saying something, we are okay with that. Now we are very sensitive people. Especially children are even more sensitive. You can't even say anything to them. They become very, very touchy or emotionally charged. Definitely, I would like to know how My Babble is supporting this particular cause.
No, thank you for that, Diksha. So My Babble is the product of many years of reflection and thinking as to how can we prevent someone else like my father to become chronically lonely from his acute loneliness, becoming chronically lonely and not being visible. On the face of it, he was not lonely. He had family around him, he had neighbors around him. But how can we reach out to people like my father and ensure that we are addressing loneliness or preventing loneliness at source rather than allowing it to progress? So the concept of My Babble is a very simple one. It is to create um, a software application or a telephone application, smartphone application or app that relies on building a community of strangers who are able to initiate conversations with each other on demand. Those conversations will be linked with each other on a random basis. So you have, say, a community of several thousand people. We hope we go more, and people are able to then, once they've joined, we have got this VoIP technology. I'm sure I'm talking to IT specialists. I'm out of my depth here, but the VoIP technology allows voice over internet phone calls to take place in a random manner, and we have the software called Twilio that provides that randomization between those different calls, and those calls are timed at 17 minutes. So I'm a member of the community. I feel like sharing something, but I don't have anyone else around me to share. I pick up the My Babble app, make a call, and because I know there are so many people out there who one of them can pick up the call for me, and I can have a conversation. And the conversation has certain prompts that enable safe conversations. And we've summarized the prompts into an acronym called HAPPY, HAPPI, highlight of the day, achievement of the day, pain of the day, plan of the day, and indebtedness of the day. Indebtedness as in gratitude of the day. So as you can see, we've got two positives, highlight and achievement, and then we've got a difficult topic, which is pain, something that can be bothering someone, and then we've got two positives to end on, plan of the day and indebtedness, something that you're grateful for. So those conversation prompts, I mean, we've done some experiments. I think 17 minutes is just about right for the two parties to go through the HAPPY acronym. But if someone talks a lot, then I'm sure they don't have enough time to complete that in 17 minutes. But our aim here is to provide a connection, a human connection between two random human beings, and they're able to leverage on their own social skills that we all have. We don't need training for that. You and I can sit next to each other on a bus and we can talk to each other. So why can't we do that through the help of technology, where we can be talking? I think the only barrier here would be we're this may be further down in an iteration. We're still focusing on English language, but in the future we may have other languages. So people can choose what language they would like to be conversing in, and they'll be connected to that community that speaks that language. So that is the concept of My Babble. And you mentioned earlier loneliness and solitude. And people say, why do you have 17 minutes only? Why can't you let people talk more? This is where we are promoting this idea that this conversation is allowing you to have an authentic conversation with someone else, another human being, using these conversation prompts in a bid to reduce that element of loneliness. But also it provides that boundary so that it is not something that one becomes dependent on. So solitude is an important part of addressing loneliness. Loneliness is not addressed just by providing social connections around an individual. Loneliness is that's a paradoxical phenomenon. Loneliness is also addressed by training the individual to be able to live and be by themselves, because solitude is what allows for professional growth, for personal growth. So
Yes.
we have to have a healthy balance between social connection and solitude. Um, in pure technical language, it's referred to as separateness and togetherness. So we need to have a healthy balance between togetherness and separateness. And therapists, without going into much detail, when they are helping an individual go through their life story and repair their life story, a major theme in that repairing of one's life story in that therapeutic encounter is achieving that balance between togetherness and separateness.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And that brings us from separatedness to togetherness. We move to Neeraj, who is working with students. And he is actually trying to solve a problem which is very common, at least we know in India, where young adults appearing for competitive exams have a different kind of pressure. If the whole society goes through that pressure, everybody knows that. Still, we actually we are not maintaining the uniqueness of our children. We are putting them into a kind of a, if not called rat race, but it's kind of a very known path. Let me put it that way, known path. And that known path has a lot of challenges that puts the student and the family to a very different kind of stress, which sometimes students are not able to take up, and they go into extreme directions. That is where Neeraj and his team is helping. So, Neeraj, I would like to know what made you focus on this age group, and what is the kind of support you are providing through Peak Mind?
Sure. Thank you, Diksha. Good evening, everyone. So, yeah, Diksha, there are many, many reasons. I'll speak about that, not just one. And you spoke about suicide, right? So this year, at least we have seen throughout the year, a lot of headlines, national headlines, have been around student suicides. This has been across the spectrum. The students who just immediately after school board exams, or students who are in the competitive exams, or even our colleges, like including the premier ones like IITs and IITs and all. So we choose across. Can't just pinpoint only one particular segment. So that's one, and I think it has reached to that level that lot of coverage, lot of attention, even governments had to come in action. The state governments like Rajasthan government or even central government under education policy 2020 has spoken very highly about importance of mental health and well-being in schools, school education. And even now, having a draft Umeed, which even specifically mentions about suicide prevention. Because though, so if you look at the numbers, like last government published data 2021 has been that says more than 13,000 suicides, student suicides in year that year. And that means 35 students committing suicides almost every day. It is not a small number because suicide is an extreme manifestation. What happens, somebody goes through that situation and how it impacts the quality of life of a student who is in that journey, and even their challenges could be completely recognized, unaddressed. So coming back to the main, that why we chose this segment. See, if we look at the journey, right? Schools prepare students for college, college for professional life, and in that again we expect them to perform well, make good living, get into relationships, make family, and that's how the cycle of life is. So as Saurav was giving my bio, I spent more than a decade in corporate world with professionals, and that's where I was just recognizing this need. I think need of EQ, emotional intelligence, has been spoken very widely in corporate world. Uh, Pre-COVID also, I think corporates were working on mental health and well-being, and definitely COVID has brought, I would say, significant attention. It has become normalized. A lot of startups are working in this space. Why I think corporate, and even when we started Peak Mind, we began with a corporate. So we were working across the segment, corporate, like working professionals, healthcare segment, and students. Very soon we realized that there's a lot of help available. The adults are can take their decisions. They can take a step forward to seek help. But the student segment, like you very rightly mentioned, it's highly unrecognized actually. So if I just give one stat, and this is in a published this is a published data by in studies, in competitive exam segment, more than 59% students are found having moderate to severe anxiety, more than 46% moderate to severe depression. And in our own work, we, like, we have been working with this segment in a very large number. Through credible assessments, we have found more than 80% expressing suicidal ideations. And these are like almost everyday basis. That doesn't mean that somebody will just take an action today. But the point is that the thoughts are there. And these thoughts limit their quality of life in every aspect, their well being, their relationships, their academic performance. How do they look? How do they sleep? How do they feel when they get up? Are they ready to go to school and all? So, so there are number of reasons. Students are our future leaders. They are hopes of their family. They could be just one among many, but to a family, every child matters. And this I realized once I started looking in my kids. Me, my wife, our life revolves around kids. We spend most of our money, efforts, energy into their upbringing, and just putting them into good schools is enough. So I just share something with you. It might look very little observation. So one day when I was analyzing, okay, with my child, okay, so I was just looking at, okay, she gets up in the morning, we just help her, chalo utho, get ready, go to school, pack your bag. She's in a school. She's just a name in the school. Maybe a name to a teacher, just maybe a label, a good student or a bad student or a naughty student. Or if she is good into any sports or extracurricular, maybe few people will put that label on. Wow, she is a pretty good sports person. Only very few friends know her uh, as a real person, that what she goes through, how she thinks, what she feels. So I realized, though she is surrounded by a lot of people, lot of resources, but there's a lot of loneliness inside. So coming back to Dr. Faisal's thing, कि भीड़ बहुत है but हम सब अंदर से अकेले हैं. So the point is that further made me think, okay, work with the segment or work with the student segment. And then there were other reasons, right? This, with this segment, they are already in a learning phase, so you can make the right use of comprehensive learning based solution, because all said and done, education is first pillar of solving this problem at mass scale. Second thing is, if you look at the 13, 14 to 18, 19 years of age bracket, this is where individual is exploring herself in terms of how do you think, how do you feel, your beliefs, biases, every experience counts, consciously or subconsciously. So there is a continuous chatter in your head all the time. And this is the times of biological, emotional, social experiences are happening, mental pressure. This is the first time you are against a very, I would say, hard goal of career selection, especially in Indian context. And that is what you were talking about. That's a tremendous pressure. because you are one among many. So if I just quote the numbers, last year in India, engineering medical put together 29 lakh students appeared for that competition, and the final seats are only 2 lakhs. That means only less than 8% qualify, and nobody can change that system. But the thing is that everyone in that journey deserves to give their best, deserves to enjoy that process, because this process is not a just 1 day or 2 day process. This process is of many year, not just 1 year. The students start preparing from 10th grade onwards, 10th, 11th, 12th, and in 11th, 12th fully for that, or 13th taking a drop year and preparing for that. So if you look at that, there's a prime year of such a large population. This is, they are the largest, I would say, resource and capital of this world, nation, for the society, and they are going through that journey. So what's the quality of that journey? And most important thing is whether everybody will become a ranker or no, or everybody may not become the winner. Nobody should come out the loser. Nobody should lose their life. Nobody should lose hope. Nobody should lose uh, that confidence that, okay, my life is over. That all these things we found, I mean, scientifically we found, because we at the end of the day, it was a building a business on that goal, building a venture that can create that impact. So we believe that this is the foundation, and if done well, this holds the key to solve mental health for today and even tomorrow in a very, very significant manner. Because if my child is happy, a child can contribute significantly even to our life, the parents who are little difficult to deal. So that, keeping those things in mind, we felt that also very structured solution can be built around this audience, because you have help of institution, you have help of parents, and students are still in that phase where they are more open, more receptive to the solution if presented well and if aligned to their interests.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense, and definitely this is the right age to provide them support and guidance. Like in our own body, we absorb and store trauma. So when you have passed this college time or whatever has happened, you have not committed the extreme step, all this whatever you have gone through gets stored in body. So it is not only about the sexual abuse the child goes through or a physical abuse, even hello, there's a problem. I don't know. I can also hear the echo. Why is that echo coming?
It's fine now, Diksha. There
Okay,
was, but I
okay.
think please
No, I
carry
can
on.
still hear the echo. I don't know why it is happening. I don't know what to do. Should I? I don't know. So yeah. So yeah. It's very disturbing. What should I do?
You join?
And
You want to reconnect?
I think it should be fine. I mean,
Let me mute myself. Just see now.
yeah, I think that's the key. Looks like. So thank you so much for the solution. So yeah, I was talking about the trauma which gets stored over the period of time, which goes unaddressed. For many years, the person does not even know that the trauma has been built in his or her system. And when we are adults, like we are 25, we get into relationships or we get into family setups. That is when we start. When we are at our job front, we start operating from our inner child, we start operating from our shadow aspects. So Dr. Faisal is the right person to tell us, like, how do we process that trauma? I mean, we know that there is a trauma in our system and most of us have it. I mean, many might not know it, but most of us have some or the other kind of trauma, which is either subconscious or unconscious. So I would like to take some advice from you to how to identify, because what happens is within family, they don't understand. The problem is this: they don't understand that a child, there are 3 children in a family. One is very sensitive. Same beating, same upbringing has been given to all 3, but the one who is very sensitive he has piled up everything. is now, as an adult, is behaving like a child in relationships, is actually repeating same kind of mistakes in multiple relationships or at work as well, changing jobs, throwing tantrums at work, doesn't help, because that is where I have identified that many of us, I can say safely 80% of us, have inner child issues. So how do we identify that, and how do we process that? That's my I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Diksha. I think just to provide a context before we address how do we identify trauma and how do we build resilience to overcome it in children, adolescents, and in adults, it's worth mentioning that the loneliness comes in three levels: intimate loneliness, relational loneliness, and collective loneliness. And I think Neeraj, very helpfully, I was very absorbed by the many good examples that you gave, Neeraj. The I think there's an interplay between those three types of loninesses in how we understand ourselves, understand others around us. So intimate loneliness is having a trusted, significant other in one's life. For a child, that may be a parent, that may be a teacher, that may be a mentor, and for adolescents or adults, that may be a partner or a husband, wife. So that is a crucial, basic, foundational element of making sure that one is not becoming lonely, or intimate loneliness is the result of not having that significant other. Relational loneliness is to do with friendship around oneself. There is a technical term for that. Those are the people that one can rely on high instrumental cost for. So there could be neighbors, there could not any neighbors that we can rely on for childcare. I mean, maybe the joint family system that we have in the Indian subcontinent maybe would fit in that relational loneliness, not having the people around you who are able to do things for you, or not having them reliably do those things because they are, not talking to you, or they've got other things to do, is what results in relational loneliness. The collective loneliness is to do with belonging. So, do I belong to this community? Do I fit in this bigger ecosystem that I am part of? Whether that's the neighborhood, whether that's to do with civic functions. That is to do with as we said, if I'm part of a profession, if I'm having a problem with investigation or something, do I feel that I'm being collectively punished? I'm not part of the crowd. So that is to do with collective loneliness. So when it comes to trauma, I think we have to understand, is it to do with lacking significant others? Is it to do with lacking friendships or significant other relationships that are helpful for instrumental support? Or is it the belonging side of it that is missing, and one feels isolated because they feel they don't fit in? The resilience is a an accumulation of making sure that we have significant others, friends, and the community around us that provides us with the necessary tools to feel that we are resilient. And at a place of work, having peer support groups, for example, will cover the relational element side of things. Having a mentor or mentors or coaches will cover the intimate loneliness side of things. And having a strong culture for the organization will cover the collective side of things. So those are some of the things that we can do in our day-to-day. Of course, clinically, if we feel that the trauma has been of such magnitude that has affected one's resilience to a pathological clinical level, then we are going into the realms of counseling, therapy, or even psychiatric treatment, rehabilitation. But I don't want to touch on that. I think we're focusing more on prevention and what we are able to do in the workplace. So my three would be mentoring, having supportive peer groups, and having a strong inclusive culture within the organization as the three elements that cover the three facets of loneliness that are crucial to to making sure that the resilience is there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And the kind of support you have provided, we can definitely look around for that kind of a support for ourselves. That brings me to the another aspect of moving from the coaching competitive exam setup to getting into the college. Now a first year student which has gotten into the college becomes actually very free in his approach, because this is newfound freedom. Everything is looking very good. He's excited, or she's going around and making a lot of friends, and he's the topper of his own city, so there's nothing to worry about kind of a situation. But then he flunks in the exam, and now comes the self doubt. Now comes the societal pressure. How will I face my parents? How will I face the situations? And then it leads to the second stage, where again loneliness comes in picture, when you don't know how to share it with people, because so far you have been the topper of your community. So how do you tell that within first semester itself you have flunked? And then they go into distractions, they go into sometimes substance abuse as well, addictions as well, just to soothe the pain which they have right now. So Neeraj, my question to you is, what can, as an institute, we can do to provide that easy transition between the student coming from this extreme pressure? I feel the cleansing is missing. So we can we have some kind of a cleansing in the system among the students, and then put them so that they have a bigger perspective. They don't lose sight of why they are here, kind of. So I would like to know your perspective on that.
No, thanks, Diksha. I think very, very important question, because it is a huge transition. It's a huge transition. Somebody gets through college, and especially if we're talking about somebody clearing high-stake exams, getting into an engineering and medical college. So what happens? And because we closely observe this audience, their mindset. Uh, uh, Biologically, there's not much change in a student who is in a 12th grader versus the moment they get into the college. But what happens till the time you're preparing for this competition, you're in a very constrained environment. You have very, very focused goal, and it is like not just marathon. It is a marathon of sprints, because every week you have to slog, prepare for something, uh, take the set. It's like, we were talking about resilience. So this setback and fear of failure is every week. It's a weekly goal you are chasing. There are tests, you are being assessed against someone, your internal ranks and all, your own goals. So you accumulate so much, right? And then somewhere inside you have that feeling that I have given everything that I had to this competition. Now I want to enjoy my life, correct? So then you go to college, and this college is a newfound freedom. The first is that, right? It's a very, very newfound form of freedom. You have resources, uh, uh, and again, but then you are in an environment where everyone is like you. Everyone comes from that journey, but in the background there is a cultural diversity, there is an financial diversity, there is a social diversity, there is an aspirational diversity, because not in the college everyone again wants to become a topper. I remember our days in our entire batch of 2021, only three people were there who still wanted to study hard. Actually, all of us were quite okay to maintain a 6 or 7 CGP out of 10, but those three were always competition, know who will be the DR1 and all. So what I mean to say is, it is a big transition. And again, when you are preparing for competition, you might be at home, so you still have parents around, you have a couple of your luxury of your home environment, or you have gone away from city to stay in some remote city for coaching and all. So the point is that the first thing is, there are multiple things which need to happen, and we have been working on this program. We have created this program and also delivered successfully. Is again, there has to be a uh, you know uh, we have created 10 modules. It's like a 10 modules education which covers everything from what you have been through, reflect, acknowledge, because everyone has accumulated something, and I call it emotional dusting, or healing or cleansing, right? So everyone needs to do that, and that cannot happen until unless they are told or they are appreciated, because that is another challenge. We always appreciate for the good things. We never talk about, oh, I understand you're also going through a time, it is difficult, I know you are stressed, right? And it is okay, but then you have achieved your goal and you need to give it some time now. Take some time to end vacations, watching movies. Entertainment can't do a job. It is a very, very inner process, and it needs to be spoken, it needs to be acknowledged. So one is the listening process, we can call, is like the talking about that. We can have, again, that program has multiple components where seniors sharing that they went through, what they realized after doing that. So typically that brings a lot of I would say inspiration. Second, expert session where they can go take them through group critic sessions, right? Deep meditation sessions. uh, I would say reflective journaling also plays a very, very important role, where they can close one chapter that I've been through this journey, this is what I achieved, these were my struggles, and I'm okay with it, and now setting some goals for the next phase. Other things are, I will talk about majorly life skills. I think another thing, again, working for the reason for working with this student is that typically life skills are left life ki life sikha degi, but then it ends up becoming learning them very, very reactive manner, right? But the point is that today no one is there to teach you a lot. You have to be very lucky to have very supportive people around you. Parents have expectations, your institution systems have expectations from you. So looking at the life skills, like how to adjust in a new culture, how to take care of, talking about even well-being now, being itself as a one life skills. Sleep hygiene, looking at good habits. Now it's a free adult in a college. You cannot, so they have to make all sort of choices, and I think they have to make those choices and then learn from that. Talking about that, okay, these are the how to make the decisions and how to correct your decisions. So again, I would say the number of programs are there, which has to be an integral part of the moment we have these first year students or first semester students coming in college. During orientation itself, very, very focused program, 10 hours program, talks about 10 different things which covers these aspects. So I would say that is number one thing. Two thing, in college we talk about, again, different pressures for all sort of reasons, you just spoke many of them. This is the right time that we can put them into a sort of a mandatory mental health and well-being or self-care system, actually. So see, another challenge is what's happening is uh, well-being can't be optional. It can't be a choice, a choice in the sense it can't be just left on someone who just doesn't understand the meaning of it or the value of it truly in that moment. Others responsible around them, be it an institution and parents, really and genuinely understand now that this is a mandatory thing. The way we have into mandatory courses, like be it around engineering or technology, similarly, mental health, well-being, and care should be made mandatory. And this is what we have done in at least in Peak Mind, the way we have created the platform, that this is holistic. So we are talking about well-being now. Holistic well-being has 6 components and they appeal to everyone. Psychological well-being, emotional well-being, social well-being, digital well-being, academic well-being, and physical well-being. Now they are the powers. They are your right. You deserve them. It is a fundamental right. I mean, we believe that this should be a fundamental right of every student. It should not be left a choice, and institutions should invest into that thing, that how do they how do they make this both entire solution with entire company value chain, preventive, education, curative, uh, in a form that everybody gets access to it. So I would say these two fundamental pieces will take care of this burning issue at college level.
This is wonderful to know that Peak Mind has that already. Neeraj, I think we will mute. Yeah, thank you. So PeakMind already has that. That is really nice, and would like to see that in all colleges, all institutes, everywhere, because that transition is very, very important. And that transition tells whatever you are trying to achieve through that cleansing is basically you are rewiring the brain. So the rewiring part brings us to neuroplasticity, which again I want to understand from Dr. Pezel, like how do as an adult as well, we all after an age now people start saying that I have grown, I can't change, but no, that's not the reality. We can actually change. That is where there is a lot of evidences, lot of proven scientific facts that by practicing elevated emotions, by doing mindfulness practices, we actually change our genetics as well. I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza has been working extensively on that, and I really vouch his work, saying that he has done this analysis where he has seen gene expressions getting changed. He has seen the telomere length, which describes our age. So that also has increased through elevated emotions. So that means there are enough evidences that it is definitely possible that if we start rewiring our brain, it starts basically showing up. It's like a reward system which goes in our body. We reverse aging, we reverse diseases, we reverse lot of problems. So I want to understand from you what is neuroplasticity for everybody, and how we can make best use of it, like a mental hack, if you can give us.
Exactly as you said. No, thank you for that, Diksha. Exactly as you said, neuroplasticity is about modifying our ability to express our genes, and through the use of positive emotions, positive experiences, we're able to improve the ability, the resilience of ourselves to manage our stress and manage and navigate through life. I mean, if I want to share a story of mine, I think linking with what Neeraj was saying earlier, often we have this idea or concept in our head that whatever we are doing is a zero-sum game. I'm going for this exam. I'm competing against so many thousand other candidates, and if I am successful, I will be rewarded. If I'm not successful, I will be humiliated. I will be denigrated, and my value is reduced. So this is the zero-sum game that is maybe through societal expectation, maybe through parental expectation, maybe through school expectation, I think gets entrenched in ourselves from that very young age. And I think the wonderful work Neeraj is doing, I fully echo and support, I think, to help disentangle some of that false expectation. And I think that is the first, I think my story was, may not be that relevant, but in the same spirit, it was a few years ago when I was interviewing for a management position in my hospital, and I had been a junior manager by then. I was going for a slightly more middle manager, from clinical lead to clinical director, and I, did everything that someone would do. Worked very hard, went and met with everyone, read all the books, prepared for the interview. And on the interview day, I thought I did very well, only to be surprised or finding out later that I did not succeed, and that was a huge source of disappointment for me. You can't imagine. You talk about suicide. I didn't feel suicidal, but I had thoughts that I'm valueless, I'm helpless, I'm worthless. But I owe it to a mentor of mine who, I think, in our hospital we had this system of mentorship, which in my case I had a mentor assigned. I rarely used to go and see her. It was maybe once every 6 months I would go and maybe have a cup of tea. And I didn't, up to that point, this is 2014 I'm talking about, up to that point I maybe did not I knew that there's a mentor and they're there to help me, but if I'm stuck or whatnot. But I never had thought about mentorship in a very meaningful way. And after I failed that interview, I was very disappointed, and I took a few days off. And it occurred to me, why don't I go and see my mentor? Because I have a mentor assigned. I've not seen her in maybe many months. So I went and saw her, and again in my mind I was thinking she'll say, "What a failure you are, Faisal! You should have worked hard." And because this was how I'm wired from the beginning, it's all about failure. And she got me to, she asked questions. She never gave any answers. She asked questions. So she said, "What does that mean for you?" And you know, what does the failure mean for you? And where do you want to see yourself in, so much? And what other opportunities do you think you have? What other strengths you have? I think the whole conversation was a game changer for me, because I came out feeling a lot more elated, thinking I'm not that bad. I have lots of other things and skills. And then, interestingly, 2 weeks later, I even resigned from a junior manager post, because I realized from that conversation that maybe that was just a way of me trying to satisfy my ego, or what others are perceiving of me. So, and I took a different approach. I took coaching itself. I thought coaching is maybe where my strengths lie, and where I can contribute to the running of the hospital or the culture of the organization. So that's just a simple example to highlight that if we if we perceive whatever we are approaching as a zero-sum game, and if we don't succeed in what we are about to in that task, then we are setting ourselves for fail in deteriorating mental health, physical health. And this is where, so neuroplasticity is that we all carry set of genes that can determine what illnesses that we can express, but these genes come in dormant form. It is our life experiences, it is our life choices, and it is our stresses that, and how we manage our stresses, that turns on or turns off these, or keeps these genes turned off or turns them on. And in this one example that I gave about myself, clearly, had I persisted with that, my genes would have been activated. I would have maybe become depressed. I would have maybe developed physical health problems, diabetes, blood pressure, this and that, only because I would have been stuck with that expectation that this is how society expects me to do, and this is what I expect of myself. So there's a lot to be said about how we, provide safe spaces where, for ourselves and for each other, where we are encouraging that discussion and dialogue about where are people's strengths. Okay, you went for this engineering exam that you didn't get, but that's not the end of the road. If one door shuts in your face, there are 10 other doors that have opened behind you. But unless you turn around, and how do we help those individuals to turn around and not be stuck with that scenario? And the other thing I like in what you said, Nirajan, how do you help the individual even when they are going through that journey of that preparing for that exam? How can they enjoy that journey? That this is not a zero-sum game, that this is not an all or nothing. This is not all white or all black type thing, all light or all darkness. So I think those are simple, but I believe powerful ways of ensuring that our approach to life and our appreciation of our own strengths gives us the tools to remain resilient and improve our neuroplasticity, so that whatever genes that we have remain turned off rather than turned on.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic, because epigenetics plays a huge role. As a clinical genomic scientist, I understand the role, and I understand that we do not get all diseases. It is, as you rightly said, you go in that loop and then you actually turn that on. It was not, maybe it is that is where I think, from a spiritual point of view, if we say that the free will and destiny comes, so you're using your free will to reach to that destiny. Actually, you could have actually changed it into a lighter way, so that you don't reach that destiny of having those genes activated in your system. So that is really powerful, I feel, if we can understand this, that how and when to stop, and also to see a bigger picture of life, understand the mythic theme that we have. We are not here just to become engineer, doctor, or whatever. we are here to actually exercise lot more things. We are here to live a very grateful, happy life. And we are all 8 billion people, 7 billion, I don't have exact numbers, but whatever billion people we are all unique. And that is why our fingerprints are unique, our DNA structure is unique. Not structure, I mean the imprints are unique. That is the reason, and that's what nature is trying to tell us. Don't try to become like someone else. Stay in your own uniqueness, and those who stay in their uniqueness are seen in the as a successful people. It may be any domain of work. They are successful because they maintain their uniqueness. And if we can do that too, I think that will be one of the most important things that can be done. So before we head to the other side of the conversation, where we will take questions from audience, I want one last question from you, Neeraj. Because you earlier said that there are 80%, I think that's the number you said, 80% students still have that kind of a suicidal thought in them. So I just want to quickly understand, how do you deal with that when you identify there is a threat or alarm situation? How do you identify, and how do your team addresses it? That will be very beneficial while applying it to the institutes in general.
Okay, thanks, Diksha. Yeah, it is 18%, which is on almost daily basis. But yeah, if we count the numbers who have been thinking, more than half of the days, the numbers are high. And as Dr. very rightly covered about neuroplasticity, I'll just add that point in students' context. A lot of times these students come up with this sense of disappointment, and they lose their very, very low confidence. No, I won't be able to do it, right? And then these very, very successful practices today, using affirmations, using deep inner guided visualization, meditation practices, which try to help them build that self-esteem, self-belief again, that yes, how they can unleash their potential. So coming back to this question, see, in dealing with how do we work with suicide prevention now? I think it's a very, very big question, kind of, I think the entire world today. How I think it's still a lot of work to be done on this side. What we have done so far, and where we see success. Number one is, when we started, we saw that there are a lot of helplines made available. And I at least personally, I used to wonder, okay, if someone is having that situation, would they come and dial a helpline there, right? And is more number of helplines would bring the numbers down or prevent the suicide. And of course, data shows helplines are very helpful in certain cases, but suicide prevention is a very, very deep rooted issue. And when we were working with some of these recently come up challenges in city like Kota and all, from administration to everyone was really brainstorming around it, that we reach to that student who maybe has already who is on the verge or already there, and has cut off, not willing to talk to anyone, share with anyone that what to be done. So how do we bring every student into the system? And I know it's not a one day's job. So what we have found working so far is that number one thing is, how do you look at this whole thing holistically, not just from a problem solution approach? Because if someone is not willing to accept something is wrong with me, of course they will not come forward, because they don't even understand that. So I'll answer it in 3-4 steps. Number one is, what to be done with that individual. Second is, what to be done with the environment around that person, right? And third is, what to be done once you identify any such in case like that, what is the process there? Now the first thing is, what to be done with the individuals. We need systems today, and that is where the technology is going to play a very important role. That we all are addict of technology, okay, in a wrong way. But I think at least if we can make technology for this purpose, that will be a very good outcome of technology. In this, having systems where we bring every student to interact on that system. For example, in our case, a Peak Mind platform, we have built number of activities for students. Those are from a daily mood check-ins to assessments, a lot of self-care activities, connect with the coach, community challenges, habit building. And in that process, we talk about so interests which are more, let's say, academic performance, relationships, and well-being. So because it has to be very, very relatable, only then somebody will just come and of your system. And that process, we capture a lot of data points, and there's a lot of resources, a lot of evidence where somebody, let's say for example, went through a depression and anxiety assessment, and you have a suicidal screening question also there. And two, you know, students do express that, yeah, I'm thinking about it, and a small percentage of that will admit, yes, even I have made a plan, and I have even attempted. So those system flags those students, and we get the list of such students, and now a team which is responsible, the human team, like team of experts which is responsible to take a preventive action, now can proactively reach out to these students. So we are not waiting for someone to go to the system and seek help. So that where the prevention lies here. One is a system, a platform where students come happily, actively for various purpose, and in that process you lot of massive data points around it. You leverage technology which can give you automated response, triggers, reports, the graphs which can educate students. And number one thing is, I think we are missing as a system as a one very basic thing is ABCD of health and well-being. I think there's a lot of talk about mental health is important, well-being is important, but when I talk 10 different people, what is mental health to you, you will be surprised I told 10 different answers. Even if I will ask this question, what is anxiety, depression to you, this everybody will have very, very different answers. So if subject is standard, you know, can't be different, you know, symptoms. So we, as an engineer, I studied maths for 16 years, and today I don't know, you know, and my life revolves around my emotions. So emotional understanding, the education, ABCD of mental health and well-being, a platform which, so is that our platform works significantly, we get a lot of proactive data points. Then lot of work on the creating the support system. There are standard, global standard trainings. Dr. Faisal would know that very well. Gatekeeper trainings in which we train teachers, which we train parents, we train support staffs. Also, we are working on creating the network of well-being champions. So I may not be worried about my care, but someone around me really observe that what is happening to me, how am I looking, am I eating, talking, how am I walking, and can really flag that, oh, can, you know, something need to be done with it. So I think with that ecosystem we are working. They are you know, single point of contact. So these students are given instant plus if the issue is severe, they connect to the coaches or experts reach out to them.
Awesome, awesome. This is another very, very powerful, strongly weaved support system which you have created. So definitely it has been immense learning for me as well, and I'm sure for everybody here have learned and understood a lot of aspects from MyWebble and from Peak Mind as well, and the kind of challenges our young generation goes through. So the idea of this conversation was to present a proposal to IIT directors so that we can have a uniform method, a uniform understanding of, as Neeraj said, there is no uniform understanding understanding of things, so we can have a uniform understanding across institutes and see how we can take it forward. So we will be creating a proposal out of this conversation, and I would request Dr. Faisal and Neeraj as well, if you can spend some time and help us define that. That will be really meaningful for us as well to take it forward. So with that, I would like to thank both of you for joining us, and I'm handing over to Saurabh for the questions which we may have from audience.
Right. Thank you, everyone. It was a wonderful session, quite a bit of learning for me as well. And rightly, again, as we said, the concept of mental well-being, mental health, what it means, it has different meanings, different connotations for everyone. While I might need some support myself, but how capable I myself could be to understand someone else might be sitting next to me, might be in need of that help much more than I would need it today, right? And I think a lot of work needs to be done on that. Um, on the same note, what I'd like to say is, and we'll head to the questions, and I'm just trying to set a bit of context here. Um, Today, I'm actually, hosting this session sitting out of IIT Delhi campus itself, trying to get in that frame, because this was the place which gave us a lot of, good energy, positive energy, a lot of, the initial boost to get on things and get on with the life after university. So today I took that opportunity to come back here, and throughout the rest of the afternoon, I did spend with some of the students here, talking about as they are preparing for exams, they are preparing for their placements, they are preparing for the life ahead, right? And what it would mean to go in there, face the challenges, and come out winning on the other side, right? So I think it's a very good context here. And with that, if I could take the first question, which sort of relates to that, it's that time of the year. This question has come from Mr. Raman Patel, a scientist at BEL, comes from Bangalore in India. And he's asking this question that, the placements seasons, it's everywhere. It's affecting all of us. There's a lot of anxiety. And specific to the, IITs in context, right? There's a lot of talented students, not only in IITs, but I would like to say even outside. Um, what can be done, right? What can we do and tell them that, hey, this is not the end of life. This is probably just a beginning. And there's not a winning scenario, there's not a losing scenario. It's what steps you take from now on and kind of build your career from here. And there's a long road ahead of it, and this is just a start. I mean, how do we bring that sort of calmness and peace, so they are less anxious about getting a job or not getting a job through campus, outside of campus? I mean, how do we address that problem? And this is for a very, very large community, and I'd like to hear from both of you, and Diksha yourself as well, right? What do we do? What do we tell these students, right?
Yeah, can I take that first?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. I'll be little direct here. 2-3 things. Number one, I think even as an institution, we have to stop promoting only the high paid jobs. Number one, I see that as an increasing trend in the media, that 1 crore salary job or 2 crore salary job. I think that creates a lot of anxiety. Of 89%, even more than that, oh, even if I'm getting a decent job, am I losing there? Number two thing is, I think this environment, what happens, what really works well is, I think we can arrange a number of sessions where we can invite people who have been out of the IIT system on different career paths. And many of them might have very humble beginning, and they were doing fairly well in their lives. For example, I was a 5-pointer, and I've been a serial entrepreneur from a very, very small town, and but very, very happy life, actually. Very, very successful life that I've been doing. And I have seen tremendous, very, very huge number of examples around me, and even today. So I think my suggestion would be, definitely, one is, like I said, on these 2 terms which are in our control, a number of talks by a group of people who can talk about it, that yes, it is okay. Life may have different paths for everyone, but at the end of the day, you all will do well if you follow this kind of path routine. And second is definitely there will be increased anxiety and stress right now. So there, with the experts of health professionals and experts, some sort of group counseling sessions, which who can also help them to maintain the calmness, give very quick tips and tricks, and also what is in their hand to what they can control. So why we feel anxious when we feel that we are losing control. So then bringing that perspective, whatever time they have, in what they can control, how they can work, put more efforts in terms of maximizing their job option. So those were messages.
Right, Dr. Faisal?
Yeah, thank you for that. So essentially, I would agree with what you just said. Of course, you're more aware of the Indian context, and I fully appreciate that. Group scenarios, if you look at a group scenario, there are usually two dynamics that are at play. In any group situation, whether that's a small group or a large group, there are two dynamics that are competing with each other. One is that of conformity, and one is that of individualism or uniqueness. And I'm sure there's work, the work of Bion, Wilfred Bion, and other people who have done, who have studied groups, have talked about the balance between conformity, which is a function of belonging to the group. So there's got to be some elements in the group that has to conform and give it the semblance of a group that is, having a unique identity, if you like. But also, at the same time, the individuals within that group are able to express their uniqueness or express their individualism. When there's a mismatch or there's an imbalance of those two dynamics, the group is either too conformist or the group is too individualistic. I think we get into problems. If the group is too conformist, we are then losing the ability to have individuals express their uniqueness, express their individuality, and the group becomes very totalitarian in an extreme. Right? We all have to have the same haircut. We all have the same clothes, and have to all think the same way. And I think on the other extreme, everyone having their own thoughts, and every individual becomes an anarchy of some sort. There's got to be some system in place. So, and sometimes we have to bring that group dynamic thinking in how we want to improve our resilience. That whatever we are embarking on will have an element of belonging to it. I want to be sitting the engineering exam test, engineering college test. So I want to belong to that community. But if that doesn't happen, that isn't the end of the world. There's got to be other elements of individualism or uniqueness that I can explore. I think that would be my analysis of this. But at a practical level, I mean, analysis in the sense that we should still, I think you made that earlier point, Diksha, that we all are unique, and I just echo that through this example of group dynamic. But at a practical level, I would, and I have benefited from that greatly myself, I would advocate having good mentors in every institution and every organization who are there to support that exploration of one's strengths, not judging people. Because the difference between a manager and a mentor is that mentor doesn't judge you. A manager judges you. Have you done your job? Have you not done your job? This is your reward. You're promoted. This is your consequence. You are demoted. Or very extreme, of course. But a mentor doesn't judge. A mentor asks questions, and that question asking, as simple as it sounds, is a very, very powerful technique that helps build one's resilience and brings about different perspectives in an individual. And a mentor is a person who helps you see the same thing from different angles. So I might see this from this angle, but a mentor will ask me questions that will help me see it from this angle and from this angle and the other. And that gives you a gestalt of the scenario that one is dealing with. And that, I believe, is the core of one's resilience. and takes us away from that zero-sum game, all or nothing. And and again, the other suggestion I made earlier, and Deeksha supported it, apart from mentoring, is volunteering. Because volunteering will teach you and teach me and teach everyone else how valuable our skills are. So we may not be good enough according to a certain standard, but we clearly are good at something. That's why we're volunteering. Yeah, back to
Right.
you.
Great. And on that same note, I'll come back to you with a follow-up, but just to close this question, I'll come to Deeksha now, and I'll also address this question which has come from Mr. Balasubramaniam from Mumbai, India, and it says the mind-body connection, right? And what we have heard is, yes, you have to be resilient, you have to be either you're in a group or individual, you have to have some form of that resilience of what defines who you are, right? So when you talk about the mind-body connection, when you talk about energy, when you talk about your own individualistic self, your gene imprint, and the concepts that you talked about, how would you say, and what can one do to actually make it stronger, right? When you say I'm strong inside, I'm strong outside, right? So how does that come about, and uh, how can someone access that to kind of build resilience internally, right? Diksha, would you share something with us of that?
I'll be very happy to answer this one because, see, we need to understand that we have three brains. I am not sure whether everybody is aware of that. We have three brains. One is between our ears, which we all know. Another one is our heart. Heart has more capabilities to communicate to brain than brain communicates to heart. It's a proven scientific fact. And the third one, most important one, is our gut. So gut has microbiome, which is like 3 kgs of weight of our body is the microbiome of our gut, which is bacteria. So healthy bacteria leads to good amount of information to the brain. So if your gut health is bad, your mental health will definitely be bad. If your mental health is bad, your gut health will slowly become bad. So that is how it works. I have written an article on this, like the role of these three brains and how we can actually make best use of optimizing the energy on all three aspects. So I would really request if I will pass it on for everybody. So I think that is very important. So when you eat, it is very important that you eat healthy food, clean food, and you should have a healthy bacteria. Prebiotic and probiotic helps a lot in this process. Another part is sleep, which is most important. Again, I wrote article and created a video as well on that. It is most important part. You have to sleep well, because I'm sure Dr. Faisal will agree with me that if our subconscious brain is sorting all night, then we are not resting at all. So we have to actually make sure that we eat properly before bed, 2 hours before bed, have a healthy dinner, whatever it is, so supper or dinner, and then go to sleep without scrolling. Because when you scroll whole day, when you are actually trying to fall asleep and you're constantly scrolling, your subconscious is reporting everything. And when you go to sleep, your subconscious brain comes online and it starts sorting. So whole night it will keep on sorting, whether should I keep this, whether should I remove this, whether should I keep it for short term memory or long term memory. So it's whole night, this process is going on. By the time you wake up, you're tired, you are not in a good mood, you're agitated, you are like very cranky. And that is what is the mental health issue we are talking about. We started a day with a bad note, so we will continue that with the whole day again. So a cycle will go on. So we have to really understand, this is a very important question which has been asked. We have to really address the physical health first, mental health will follow. Gut health first, brain health will follow. I would put it the other way around. If we take care of our body, that is why those people who are doing yoga, meditation, whatever, taking care of body, they have lesser of such problems. That's my take on this.
Right, wonderful thoughts, and on that same note, I'll come back to Dr. Faisal if you allow me. Uh, we talked a lot about identifying and working on the symptoms, helping people, providing support groups. Neeraj talked about how there's a community system, there's a buddy, there's a mentor around it. Uh, but I want to see if we can take it a step earlier in the game, and that is where, if I look at it, there is this one challenge which I'd like to pose as a question, and for general understanding for everyone. we're trying to fight something initially which we don't see yet, right? And that's where when you talk about loneliness, when you talk about someone not being emotionally very well, it's not yet manifested itself sometimes big enough to be able to be seen by a mentor or someone who's actually trained. Now, is there something, are there some telltale signs? Is there something which, let's say, if I had to look around, friends and family around myself, is there something which I can look at? Are there few pointers which I should be careful about to just understand if someone, while being in the community, being in the family, being everywhere around us, is still feeling lonely? Is there something which we could do? Like we say, when we talk about cases of heart attacks, right? The earlier we detect it, the earlier we identify it, there's much more chances of coming out of it on a good note, right? So is there something that we can do, right? Is there something we can preempt the entire thing, right? Would love to have your thoughts on that.
Thank you for that. No, that's very relevant and important point to consider. And as I was saying earlier in my earlier answers, we look at prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention. But if I may expand on the primary prevention side, the the essence of essentially acute loneliness is an invisible phenomenon. We all experience it. It's there across the lifespan. Yes, some groups will experience it more than others, but each one of us can experience it in a very dynamic way. Some days we may experience more of it, some days we may experience less of it. But how do you identify that? What are the telltale signs of becoming lonely or being lonely? I would bring it back to the environment. The environment has a big, the environment and the way the environment is at that moment in time is a big indicator of how individuals in that environment will be feeling. So if it's an organizational setup, what is the atmosphere? What is the vibe one gets when walking into that organization? Is it a good vibe? Is it a negative vibe? Is it a very competitive vibe? And that vibe indicates or provides an indication as to how pressured or how relaxed or how friendly or how hostile or non-hostile the environment is. And that, by extension, predicts the incidence of loneliness in individual members who are in that group. But if we look at individuals themselves, I think the onus should be on ourselves rather than us looking for the telltale signs. I would say we should approach everyone with a smile. We should, as simple as it is, and say hello to everyone. Positive affirmations. Hi, how are you? How's your day been? And we should reach out to everyone. There was we held a conference this early this year under the banner of My Babel, a loneliness conference in the city where I live in Hull, and we invited the Lord Mayor of the city to come and open the conference. And it was a very ceremonial thing, like you do sometimes to give an event of prominence. But a very powerful thing that came out of that invitation. I mean, we thought the invitation is just a ceremonial thing for photographs and that'll be it. But the Lord Mayor was so um, interested in the whole thing. He said, I can't do much, but what I can do from my position is to tell everyone that we should become a friendly city. So he went out to the press and television and all these other people in the local area and told them that we should run a campaign that everyone in Hull should say hello to each other, whether they know them or not. And his simple definition of loneliness was that if people are friendly with each other, you're not lonely anymore, and you are being affirmed that you are a human being who has worth, who has dignity, who has value. And that campaign is coming up in December, by the way. So they're still underway with campaigns and everything. But I think as simple and as powerful as this, that we should until we wait. So chronic loneliness, when people have become withdrawn or they're not having many friends or they are being isolated, that is of course an at risk further down the line. But as you're asking, sort of, we're looking at how do we catch it before it gets to that stage. I think having friendly, non-hostile environments and each of us playing a part in that would be one. Second, we should all take it upon ourselves to greet each other, to wish each other well, and to smile. I think those are simple things that we can do to make the environment that we work in friendlier. and by extension, reduce the risk of loneliness and isolation.
Wonderful. Neeraj, could I come to you with a similar question where you say you worked with startup founders, you worked with professionals, you're now working with students, right? So and that's a wide variety of people, expectations, and environments, right? How do you see that changing between the different demographics?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I have been through that journey. I have been, as an entrepreneur, as a manager, as a co-founder, as a spouse, as a parent, and then as a mental health professional or a champion sometime. And I wonder about myself. Most of my learning comes from my own experiences or observing my own life, and a few who are very, very close to me. I think. Uh, so if I talk about, let's say, startup entrepreneurs, startup founders, and all, and I can very safely say there's a lot of talks about that. Even about it's a very, very lonely word, because one is in that you get that uh, one is self-belief, self-ego, or pride, you can say. You create a sheet around you that I have to be like that. I have to. Uh, I can't give up. I can't fail. And second is also a lot of expectations around you, and you are put midnight oil continuous every day for weeks, months, and years, and you don't even realize that you have reached that stage where you are burnt out. You have so much carrying in your head, in your heart, and there's no one with whom you can express it, because most of the time you are in that thinking execution mode. So I personally experienced that. Thankfully, I've been following some practice, so I could handle it. But I have seen many very, very capable people, very close friends, even my co-founders and others, find it extremely difficult. So I have seen in that. I have seen typical managers, when we talk about that, and a lot of talks about good managers, bad managers. I think it is responsibilities when they come on your shoulders, and you start expecting a lot from others, and you lose focus on self. And then this just, you wonder what is happening, why people don't like me, right? Why my team doesn't like me, why all of a sudden I was a good IC, happy IC, individual contributor. The moment I have become a manager, I have become a bad guy now, right? So I think you start wondering a lot, but then you have to please, or you have to report to seniors, and then you have to manage people below you, and literally no outlet for yourself. So, and then now being, I think everywhere it's a human life. Life doesn't change. A human struggle, human dilemmas. It's same across, and more intense the roles you are performing. I would say there are much higher and deeper chances that you are going to experience it for sure.
Good, wonderful. On a related note, I have this question from Mr. Yogesh Andle, who is director of Nucleus, joining us from Noida, India. So he's saying, and his question is that Dr. Faisal, wonder if group exercises at the initiation of college education to break ice is something which is useful and is something which can be done, right? And he's saying how are educational institutions in different parts of the world doing this to support mental well-being versus in the domain of studies as well. Would you be able to throw some light on that for us?
Sure, sure. So I think I can draw experiences from my own work as a psychiatrist and working as a medical doctor in hospital. And group exercises are an essential or an essential component of our training and continuing professional development, because we believe that not only we are able to understand the subconscious dynamics of our interactions with our patients and staff amongst each other, unless we join groups. So some of the audience may be aware of these groups that I'm going to refer to. Balint groups, BALINT, Balint groups are group exercises that we clinicians are part of, in which we discuss the subconscious elements of our cases. But it is also a way of helping build our resilience, so that when we are encountering difficult scenarios or life and death scenarios, that we're able to share our experiences in a safe, non-judgmental setting, and those groups provide that environment, if you like. And I find them extremely valuable, and I have always recommended my trainees, my colleagues, to be part of those groups. These are voluntary, of course. Not everyone is mandated to attend. These are held, and the attendance is optional. But the value of attending these such groups is generally far outweighs than the idea that one is wasting time in those groups. So that is for sure. But at a more corporate and organization level, generally speaking, especially as we are talking about IT here, I would say that having uh, peer support groups is something that is common practice in many industries and many companies in the UK. And those peer support groups are there to help provide self-esteem support by colleagues with each other, where they're discussing difficult scenarios in their line of work. Again, the idea here is that these groups are meant to be safe and non-judgmental. I think those are the key elements of any group that has to be set up. And it is an extension of mentoring, but mentoring that is provided by one's own peers rather than by someone who's senior than the individual, and someone who has been doing this on a one-to-one basis.
Right, wonderful. And on the same note, we had a question. We had circulated a form for this event specifically, where we'd asked the audience and members who are coming to pose their questions, and we could ask them. So on a similar note, someone has asked this question saying, how to deal with a narcissist in actual life when you happen to be in very close contact with him or her, like it could be a boss or a subordinate, and even someone in a relationship, right, where you are actually trying to reach out to someone, you need someone in your vicinity to be able to talk to, but that person itself is kind of the hindrance to the entire process. How would come to it? And I think this is a very common scenario where people are kind of in a position where they're not able to express themselves, right? So what's an alternative available?
Did I hear you say narcissists? Narcissist, you said?
That was the word quoted, so I've quoted
Yeah.
verbatim. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So again, I think my advice would be, my suggestion would be, as tempting as it is when dealing with difficult people, so we say narcissists or psychopaths or sociopaths, is to not be hateful, because that is a very common reaction that comes, that of hatred and revenge, and and those emotions, as justifiable as they may be, they become the hindrance. They become the hindrance. I would advise that the individual who is becoming a hindrance is seen as an opponent that has to be navigated through, with a clear head, with a calm um, brain, and a cool heart. How do we find? I mean, supposing we are in a dilemma where playing a game, playing any game, board game or ground game. How do we find a way to navigate this dilemma with a cool head? Be that climbing a mountain, for example, we come across hindrances. If we start hating the mountain, or uh, undermining our own efforts to doing the challenge, the task that is before us, then we have lost the game, and we have no chance to go up. It's those sorts of dynamics that can help navigate through those scenarios. And the extension to that is, of course, that person who's causing the hindrance, the person who's being psychopathic or narcissistic, will have their own shortcomings in this. If we are dealing with this with a cool head, we are then able to see the other person's shortcomings, and then we can use that into our defense, that this is the mistake on your part, or this is the shortcoming on your part, and that in turn is our way of putting them on the back foot and going forward with this. I think if that might, but I think my number one advice would be not to hate, because by hating, by having negative emotions about this, we are actually, you know, minimizing our chances of navigating through this scenario more successfully.
Amazing, amazing thoughts. Neeraj, I'll come back to you, but before that, I want to go to Diksha. I think she has something to say here. How about you address this question from an energy and a different perspective?
Yeah, that's what. So I totally, completely agree with what Dr. Faisal said, that we should not hate and we should understand, have that empathy that the person is going through some things which that person is not even aware of. And that is why it's projecting in certain manner. We can call it narcissist, but whatever way that person is manifesting, it's because they are not aware of that. From a energy point of view, as you asked, so see, we attract people in our life who mirror us mostly, or who show us the hidden sides of our own personalities which need correction. So that is why empaths and narcissists are a very unique combination we see in many relationships, that they gel very well initially, very spark is seen there, and then they have a problem going forward, because narcissist becomes very energy sapping, and the empath being very sensitive, it becomes very difficult for empath to deal with this situation. So basically, what we have to understand is, when we change, people around us change. So there is something that you need to work on yourself, so that you stand in your powers. And when you stand in your powers, the other person realizes that he or she cannot take advantage of your situation any further. So you stand to your power. So that is where it is like self love is missing. That is when you get a lot of problems in your life, whether it is in relationships or in job, as the person asked about the job as well. You can keep changing your bosses, you will attract same kind of abuse or trouble which you are trying to ignore, because you are the magnet that you are, right? I mean, we are electromagnetic beings. We are radiating constantly, so whatever we are radiating, we are attracting it, right? The opposite side of it is getting attracted. So you have to become what you want, rather than becoming the lack of what it is, right? So that is, I think, is a very deep concept, not very easy to digest, saying that "Kya re mere mein, it's not me who has the fault, it's the other person who's troubling me." No, so the universe or whatever forces are trying to just make you understand that you stand to your powers, and then everybody else disappears. Many a times, even in abusive relationships, even in marriages, we have seen either the person will change their nature, or that person itself will change. He will or she will leave the relationship and go. And that's perfect, right? I mean, if it is not working out, it is perfect to get out of that relationship. Or if the person changes also, then it's also okay. So basically, the work is with us, not with the other person. So this is what I very strongly advocate, that we have to do our work, and that is when our surroundings and people around us will also change.
Amazing. I'll come to you. I'll need some hacks. I wanted to become a Batman at some point of time, but I'm hosting a show here, so I'll need those hacks. Neeraj, quickly, I want to come back to you. We come across so many cases. Students, as we said, are under a lot of pressure to perform academics, sports. I mean, cultural. There's a lot of stuff going on, and at the same time, while there are pressures from society, from parents, from families, there's a lot which goes onto the campus between the students themselves, right? Which is, a different level of, you could say antagonism. Sometimes you can say it's hate or even bullying, right? What do we do there? I mean, and is there something which, something is in the works which, can impact? Because like we said, this is what is the formative year. This is what they learn. They see the experiences of what they, get on campus is going to shape up what they will do later on in their life. So what can you share with us on that?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, before that, thank you so much, Diksha. You made a wonderful point. I think that's the simplest and the biggest mantra of personal happiness in life. So thank you so much for reminding all of us on that. So Saurav, see, I think extending the same thing Diksha said, there are two aspects to it. One is at campus, right? What we talk about, let's look at that. So ultimately it's the environment, and in that environment somewhere we have to strongly talk about self-care, right? And again, I think I would again highlight those 2 3 important components of that. One is authentic, quick education, not gyan or big lectures on that, but yes, something very very relatable. I think this is one big missing piece. A lot of time I see that when we talk about mental health and well-being, we communicate in a very technical terms. And so for example, more than 65% of students who come to us in our platform, their leading question is not able to study, meri padhai nahi ho rahi hai. Now because they understand studies, so they, on top of their head, the problem is studies. Now underlying even deeper, there are a lot of psychological issues, variety of issues there. So the point is that number one, we have to find the right communication, right language, where uh, the students start thinking about themselves, brings more self-awareness. They understand the concept of self-care, and somewhere that everything they want to achieve, they have a control over it, what they can control, what they cannot control. So bringing that kind of an awareness, and it's pretty much doable. Let me give that confidence forum. Nothing is impossible. It is just need a strong intent that yes, we want to do. Today cloud AI has become default thing, everyone is talking about it. I remember, many years back cloud came, there was a lot of doubts about it. So I think what we will talk, what we will persist, will become language and also aspiration of our students at the campus. So I'll talk about that how do we bring their focus on themselves, self-awareness, their well-being, and how do they build habits. I'm sure others, all the around this, you can't control that, but they will learn to tackle deal with that.
Amazing. And like, we heard it so many times, the best version of you is yourself, right? So we have to, I think, stick to the basics as much as. I have two last questions, and we'll wind up. I know we are running over time. Please allow me these two questions. We talked about students, we talked about startup founders, we talked about professionals. There's another category of people, and there's always a great number of those in every society, depending on how mature the society is, which part of the world it is, and that is with the elderly, right? So the question which has come here is, again, it has come up on our forms as well, where someone has said that my dad is suffering from depression post-retirement, but and this is very very commonplace, right? I mean, you're a lot engaged, you're in a community, workplace, everywhere, and suddenly on a particular day everything of that gets taken away, and you're sitting at home and you're watching TV or something else, right? So it does happen, right? And in this scenario, this person was reported that says that he has been under psychiatric treatment for the last 16 months. So what can we do? What can we do something different early on during approaching this time? So that is one. And the second related question here is, what can we do for people who are elderly, because many times their loneliness generally gets unaddressed, and we kind of skip it altogether, right? So if so, I can get your feedback on this demographics population which is there. How do we address it, and what can be done? Right.
No, thank you for that. That's a fantastic question. And I think that's a very relevant one when it comes to loneliness and elderly people, because elderly people are a major vulnerable group that is at high risk of developing loneliness. My father's story just encapsulates that, because he was, I'm saying elderly, but he was post-retirement. He became depressed. We believe, with the benefit of hindsight, with reflection, that there was a strong thread of loneliness that was becoming more and more entrenched. Maybe not intimate loneliness because he had his wife, but relational loneliness. I think he felt that he was becoming more and more isolated. He didn't have the identity that came with him doing his job. He didn't have the peers that he would associate with on a day-to-day basis at his job. And crucially, for my father, he had worked in different countries, so there was an element of belonging that was missing. There was missing this belonging. And but if you look at elderly population, I think the the incidence of loneliness in elderly population is about 50%. So if you look at the across the lifespan, it's about 25%. Conservative estimates. In the elderly population, the figure shoots up to, if you just focus on the elderly population, and that's strictly 65 and above, 65 plus, the incidence of loneliness is 50%, mainly driven by loss of a life partner, intimate loneliness, loss of role, the relational side of it, and sometimes belonging, because one feels that with their physical health difficulties that they're not as capable or as functional as they would be before, so they would become physically isolated as a result. There is no one size fits all, like one solution that fits the whole thing. I mean, from a public health point of view, looking at promoting prevention programs where there are peer support groups of of similar people with similar age groups that they can meet or play games together. Those schemes have been trialed in the UK and have been successful. Providing befriending services, again, volunteering comes here for individuals who are otherwise capable in terms of their mental well-being and physical well-being, but they're feeling lonely. They can join volunteering into befriending other elderly peers. And I think the other thing that is quite crucial within the Indian subculture, because of the joint family system, is how do we help our immediate family members understand that for the elderly person who is going through post-retirement depression, sometimes the discussion is not so much about the disease or the illness that they've got. It's about how they feel in terms of loneliness, or not. Asking a simple question: how are you feeling about loneliness? Can we do something about this? Can we, what would help you enjoy yourself more? Or creating that friendly atmosphere might be one way of. I mean, this is one regret that we have about my father, that we had missed the opportunity with asking what would help him feel more connected, more less lonely, and have a sense of belonging. Those would be the preventive strategies, I think. But of course, if depression has set in, as we've heard in this case in this scenario, then again, seeking early help rather than letting it become more complicated would be the advice, and providing in the earlier stages counseling, therapy are the first line treatments, not medication, of course. But if medication is needed, then of course that will be recommended as well.
Wonderful. So with that, thank you so much, Dr. Faisal. We're talking about technology, and this is something which I might have a contrarian view to it, but I would like to open it to all of you and see a quick 30 or 60 seconds wrap up on this. We talk about 6 degrees of separation, right? We are all connected to the next person with a maximum of 6. We can do that. What I want to ask is, and especially post-COVID, where we were forced to be isolated with our near and dear ones. On the other side, you have this technology which is available, which is through smartphones, which is through computers, TV, everything, right? And that's taking up a lot of your attention, right? Today, when you open up your computers, they give you screen time. Even your phones give you screen time, right? And they're saying that how much time you're spending on these devices. So my question to all of you is, and you know this domain much better than I know of it, is technology adding an extra layer of separation? And is that healthy? Or is it something which we should embrace, and that should help us reduce those layers of separation, minus what LinkedIn tells us that, yes, you are connected to the person in 3 clicks or 3 degrees. I mean, is it really technology helping us, or it is drawing us inwards, more focused on our devices, where we're looking focused down instead of looking up and facing someone who's right in front of us? 30 to 60 seconds, each one of you, for a wrap up. I'll start with Diksha. Would you like to go first? I see you are
Yes, 30
ready to
seconds.
take it off.
Yes, my 30 seconds are, see, anything in moderation is good. So if you are using technology for your benefit, for connecting with people, for having professional network, for seeking help, or for music therapy, for anything that kind of, it is good. But we have to always keep a check of that, so that we don't become addicted to that, and we don't go in the loop of actually what social media wants us to do. So we have to keep our awareness very strong there, that how much we are using, and how and what we are consuming, because we don't only consume through our mouth, we consume through our all senses, right? So whatever you're consuming, you have to be mindful of that. And as we say that, even if you eat broccoli or any healthy food also more than the relevant amount, you will develop diseases around it, right? So it is not anything is not healthy or unhealthy, it is the amount that we consume, and the frequency at which we consume. So if we can keep a check of these two, then we should be leveraging technology. I am in the favor of technology. Because of technology, see, we all are talking here, we are exchanging so much of knowledge for each other. So I am totally in favor of that.
So one for technology. Neeraj, what do you say?
Yeah, I think technology is a great tool, as Diksha said. Digital addiction is number one problem across the segments, right? In fact, our digital detox program is the most powerful program across the segments with students, teachers, parents, working professionals. So I think we got to this is a real challenge. This is not gonna go away anywhere just by your wish or thinking. There are big organizations day and night working on it. That how do we become more and more addict? The massive businesses is depend on this addiction. So I think we got to really work very hard on building habits for a healthy use of technology.
Amazing. Great talk, Dr. Faisal. Final few thoughts on that.
Yes, yes. So I think I would echo what Diksha and Neeraj have said, but would just add that asking the question is like asking if eating is going to make you fat. It's not necessarily the case. I think there are benefits to having social media, and the the term nutritional value is used in food. So if we eat, as Diksha said, if we eat healthy foods, then we are promoting our health, and the same applies to social media and whatever we consume on the internet or the web. It's what provides nutritional value to us that will help makes it beneficial. If it lacks nutritional value, then of course it's going to be bad for our mental health.
Right, amazing. So thank you, everyone. I think it was wonderful session. We ran a bit over time, but I think the lessons and the message and takeaway is important for everyone. I would like the audience to show a bit of appreciation, applause, thank you, emojis. Uh, we have people coming and joining us from different continents. Diksha has done a wonderful job. Neeraj, Dr. Faisal, thank you so much for spending this evening with us. With that, I'd call it a wrap. I would hand over to Manjeet, who is our roadshow beast. Manjeet, please take it forward and with a vote of thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a wonderful session. So, but an event is incomplete without a vote of thanks in a formal note. So, I am Manjeer Majumdar, an alumnus of IIT Kanpur, lead roadshows for PO 2023. On behalf of Pan IIT Alumni India, I would like to thank all the wonderful people associated with this highly successful event. I sincerely thank Mr. Debashish Bhattacharya, Chairman Pan IIT Alumni India, and Mr. Pradeep Bhargava, General Secretary Pan IIT Alumni India, and Conference Chair PO 2023 for their constant help and support to the team. Our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speakers, Dr. Faisal Sheikh, Neeraj Kumar, for taking out their precious time from the busy schedule to share the learning and experiences with the audience. We thank our moderator, Diksha Avasti, for doing a great job in keeping all our esteemed speakers and the audience engaged. Thanks to Shaurabh for helping with critical backend support to manage the registrations on the AirMeet link, to engage with the marketing team for the creatives. I thank the program chairs Shaurav Raj and Shomnath sir again for spreading the word in various alumni groups and networks. Thanks to Praveen Kumar, marketing head, and Kannan Iyer, logistic head, for their support. Thanks to our Pan IIT Secretariat, Melissa and Padmini, for their constant support. And thanks to Thomas and Rajiv in the cyber media team for providing marketing support. Thanks to AirMeet team for hosting the event on their platform. Thanks to each and everyone for their help. Last but not the least, we would like to thank all our registered participants and our amazing audience who joined us to make the event a successful one. We invite you for our upcoming roadshow with the enthralling topic coming next, Art Outbound. And we also hope to see you at PURE 2023, 8th and 9th December in Bangalore. Thank you. Saurabh, we should close the session now.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy the cricket matches tomorrow. We'll connect again.